Hey everybody, welcome back to Battlestar Galactica Remembered, and we're going to be going back to the prop category here today. And before we even get started, Battlestar Galactica, it was really cool, and I've been showing you a lot of the stuff that I've gotten, I've collected over the years, and it used like two different categories of props. The first category were those things that were just totally created, made up for the show because they needed a prop, kind of like the communicator or the languitron or something like that. I invite you to go into my old episodes. I've just recently done episodes based on those props, and they were just totally created for the show, like the laser pistol as well. But the other category were real world items that they literally just plucked off the shelf and put on the set, like the stentaphone and the communication headset. Those were just brand new things right off the shelf that they put out there on the set, and it worked. They looked great. And today, we're going to be taking a look at another prop that you would maybe think was a just totally manufactured thing for the show, because it was pretty iconic. It was seen in almost every single episode of Battlestar. But it actually was not. And today, based on the thumbnail that you see out there, and I've got my special shirt on today. I got to wear this one today. Why is that? Because we're taking a look at this right here, the Viper control stick. And this is one of the coolest props. Probably one of the most rare props. And I told you when we were doing a lot of these that I collected a lot of stuff along the way that, some of these things were just, one-off things that were made, one batch by a prop maker and sold them, And I was very fortunate. I'll talk about this one a little bit. Now, this is not an original. This is a cast resin molded, piece here. Solid one, chunk of resin. But I got this, but it was molded or cast off of a real world item. And the real world item, and we're going to get to a lot of pictures here, we're going to talk about this, because the joystick was actually a real world item. And let's go ahead and get to the pictures. And it came off of this airplane. It's a Grumman OV-1 Mohawk. It was a Vietnam era plane that was used in like ground support and reconnaissance and stuff in the Vietnam era and into the 70s and even beyond. And like I said, you could see that the cockpit shot right there. I'll try to zoom in maybe of the joystick, and it is exactly like was seen in Battlestar Galactica. Now there is one little variation on the joystick, but in early episodes, I'll try to get some pictures up here, and then I'll put some pictures of my resin copy here up in a bit. But in the early episodes, you can actually see on screen the original lettering of what was on the joystick. And the red button, it says stores. The right button says camera pulse. And that's almost just seen on every single one of these joysticks. The middle one, mine says ICS. I have no idea what that stands for, but that's what it is. And some say different things depending. The middle switch sometimes changed, and I'll have some pictures for you as we go along. But you can even see in early episodes of Battlestar that if you look very closely, you can see those little words, the little lettering on the joystick, meaning they did not change a thing to the joystick when they used it. But at some point, they did. Because you can see, in every single time a warrior launched, every single time they shot a Cylon, right? You see the pilot's thumb, hitting the turbo or hitting the fire switch. And they had to put those letterings on there. And so you'll notice I have some pictures up there as well that if you notice very carefully of the screen used joystick, they put a little overlay on the joystick, and that's where they printed fire, turbo, and IM. That was modified, but that was the only thing they modified on this joystick. It's pretty amazing. It is a real world joystick from the Grumman Mohawk. It's pretty cool. And so that's what they did for it. It has a lot of screen time. It'd be kind of funny to go and count how many times the joystick is seen. Now, couple of little trivia things here about the joystick. What does IM stand for? That's one of the biggest questions, because we know what fire is, we know what turbo is, but what is IM? Well, it was never stated on the show. Some people have speculated that it stands for inverse maneuver or something like that. They've come up with a couple of variations, but we don't know what it is. But it was actually used, and the most famous of times it was used was in Saga of a Star World at the very beginning. Apollo tells Zach to, on the count of three, right, hit your reverse thrusters and maximum braking flaps, and they hit the I am button. And that's what does that, right? So it was used for that. That's maybe what it was done. It was reverse thrusters or something like that. But in any case, that's how they used it on the show. But it just goes to show you, right? I mean, the property masters and what they called for, the props and everything. It was amazing how they scoured the real world to get these really cool items to use on the show. And that's what kind of made it real believable to some degree, right? I mean, just real world items that we see. And they mixed so well with the created items like the Languitron and the communicator and all that. So it's pretty cool. All right. So now mine. What is mine? Again, it's just, it was molded off an original Grumman Mohawk handle here, a joystick. It still has the original lettering on there. And I just had to paint the red button and the gray buttons and all that because it was just all solid black. But it was really cool. The other little piece of trivia, by the way, about kind of the joystick, not so much specifically the joystick, but about how sensitive it is. And it feels really good in your hand, by the way. It just is like an extension of your hand. And that's what I wanted to get to. In the very beginning of Lost Planet of the Gods, there's a little bit of a trivia with this one too. In the little teaser highlights, right before the episode credits begin, there is a little shot of Starbuck when they're training the female Viper pilots. And he says, all you have to do is think of it and it'll do it, right? It's so sensitive to your reactions and so forth. Speaking about the Viper. And the piece of trivia is that although that line appears at the very beginning of the episode, it does not appear in the episode when they're actually training the pilot. So it's a little bit of trivia there. It's in the little trailer thing, but it's not actually in the episode. So it's kind of interesting. But anyway, now, what about the availability of these? To my knowledge, you cannot get these anywhere. No one I know is making and selling these. I got this one off a one-off batch from a prop maker way back about 15, 16 years ago through the Black Star Squadron, elite Battlestar costuming group. And he offered them, I think it was like $60 or $70 cast off an original Grumman Mohawk control stick. And that's where I got this one from. And the only thing though, however, there is possibly an option if you really do want one of these, 3D printing. You can, now I don't know too much about 3D printing. I don't have any 3D printed. All of my props were cast or poured or something like that with resin and that sort of thing off original molds or original pieces like this. And so 3D printing, you can go to Thingiverse. I do know that at Thingiverse, there is a downloadable file for the Viper control stick. You can download it, and I guess, like I said, I don't know. I've never 3D printed anything. You all might know more than I do. Or find someone who has a 3D printer and get the file, I guess, and run it through the printer. And maybe this will come out the other end. I don't know. You can find out about that. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know anything about 3D printing. But that's the only option I think you might be able to go to nowadays if you want one of these. You got to 3D print it. A lot of prop makers are going to 3D printing. It's a lot easier. You get the file, you make it all out, and put it in there, and it pops out the other end. You sand it, and there you go. And I've seen some online that look really, really good. So it can work for you. But anyway, that's it. The Viper control stick from Battlestar Galactica, the original one, off of a Grumman OV-1 Mohawk, believe it or not. And just recently, I'm going to put up, there's some pictures here. You may have seen one with on the actual stick and the little cable hanging out. That was a real one. It was offered on one of the auction sites, believe it or not. So if you look hard enough, you might be able to find one, a real one, out there that you can perhaps buy. I gave that one a thought, but I think, nah, it's okay. I think this one will be good enough for me. So anyway, that's what's out there. Very hard to find nowadays. Real ones are very difficult to find. Even the props are very difficult to find. But again, this was the heyday of the prop making for Battlestar, and this was probably the decade of the 2000s for the most part, when Richard Hatch, really started everything in the very late 90s and into the 2000s, and when the Reimagined show came out, and Battlestar, caught fire for that whole decade for the most part, and a lot of the prop guys were coming out and producing a lot of cool props. That's where I got most of these 15, 20 years ago, and I still got them, and that's why I'm doing this show, right? To show you all and to kind of categorize what was out there and to show, what you could have gotten, and of course, get a little more in-depth about the props used on our beloved show, Battlestar Galactica, the original version. Subscribe, like the channel, check out all my other videos, and hope you like this one. Long live Battlestar Galactica, and I will see you in the next video.